Okay, today is the fourth session of our meditation seminar, and I'd like to discuss with you the 8 steps of Raja Yoga, which is the path of meditation. Now, there are 4 basic paths of yoga. One path is the path of wisdom, in which one evolves through embodying various spiritual truths. It doesn't mean just reading, it means believing and employing these truths. And these are truths which we will discuss in the philosophy seminar if you decide to continue. The second aspect, the second path of yoga is the yoga of worship, in which one worships one's own image of God. If it's a Christian, he worships Christ. If it's a Muslim, you worship Allah. If it's a Hindu, you worship one of the Hindu deities. Okay, so it's worship, but it's independent of religion. Each person worships in his own way. And this is also the path of love. It's the path of devotion and love, because when we love a divine being, that divine being asks us to love everyone. For example, if we love our spouse says to us, "You love only me and love no one else," you see. When we love a divine being says, "Well, if you love me, you'll love everyone, because I am in everyone." And so it's the opposite of loving our spouse. The divine being says, "You must love everyone if you love me." Okay. Then there's the path of selfless service, in which one serves and does his actions without seeking any benefit from those actions. This is called karma yoga. The first is called jnana yoga, which is the yoga of wisdom. The second is called bhakti yoga, or the yoga of devotion or of love. And the third is called karma yoga, the yoga of action. That is, one grows spiritually by serving others, but without attachment to the result. We will discuss these at another time. But what we are discussing in this meditation seminar is Raja Yoga, which also means the kingly yoga, and it's the yoga of the control of the mind. And so it's an 8-step process in which we learn to control our mind. And meditation is the 7th step. Well, we could say that what we're doing now is not actually meditation but concentration, so it's the 6th step. So that when someone starts meditating, they're actually starting at the 6th or 7th step of an 8-step process. And unfortunately, in the West, few schools actually asked the people that they're teaching meditation to employ the first 5 steps. It's not a prerequisite from our point of view, but we would like you to know what these steps are, because meditation is a part of a long tradition, and they have thought this out well, and they have discovered what one needs to do in order to control one's mind, in order to become free from one's mind. Okay? So let's look at briefly, because we're going to go deeply into them as we move on in the classes. Let's look today briefly at what these steps are. The first step is called the yama, which means control, and they are ethical guidelines. Now there are 5 ethical guidelines. It's non-violence, not to be violent in any way; truthfulness, not to tell lies; not stealing; not having greed or jealousy, and sexual moderation. Okay, we're going to discuss each of these separately as we go on. The second step is our 5 disciplines. The first discipline is cleanliness or purity, having a clean body. It's written on the paper that I gave you. A clean body and a clean mind. The second discipline is self-study, which means 2 things. It means studying the self with a small s, which is the personality, and studying the self with the capital S, which is the soul, studying these 2 aspects of our being. The third is difficult to translate into English. It's called tapas, which is a form of willpower, a form of sacrifice or discipline, austerity. We will discuss this in detail. The fourth is devotion. And the fifth is the cultivation of satisfaction. That is, one can cultivate the idea of feeling satisfied. Okay? So these are like the 10 commandments, if you like, the 10 basic rules which one should abide by if one wants to conquer his mind. Now in this system, it doesn't have the idea of sin the way Christianity has, that if you don't do this, you're sinful and you're going to be punished. It's just very simple. You can't get free from the mind if you're telling lies. You can't get free from the mind if you're acting or thinking violently. You see, you can't get free from the mind if you don't have willpower. So it's a very practical thing. Although it reminds us of various ethical guidelines, they're not placed in a way that you are good if you do this and you are bad if you don't. It's just you are free. You are much more likely to become free from suffering and from your ego and all the suffering that your ego creates and your mind creates if you can establish these 5 prerequisites. We'll be discussing 3 of them today, and each week we will move on until we complete them. The third step of Raja Yoga is the control of the body. These are called asanas. So the first step is called yama. The second step is called niyama, N-I-Y-A-M-A, niyama. The third step is called asana. Now these are the yoga postures which one learns in a yoga class, in some yoga classes, because much of the yoga in the West today is not yoga, but it's just preliminary exercises for someone who eventually would like to do yoga. Yoga is actually static positions. It has nothing to do with moving exercises. They are static positions which you take, and as you remain in those positions, you allow the awareness to move through the body, removing all resistance, holding, tension, until the body becomes totally relaxed in that position. These are positions which the yogis discovered 5,000 years ago, which would free the body from, and the energy body, the physical body, the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the energy body from any kind of disturbance, so that the mind will be freer. So that any of you that have experienced these asanas will realize they do affect the mind. The mind, when you come away from these, your mind is clearer, it's energized, it's much more relaxed. Okay? So the purpose of asana is to prepare the energy body and to prepare the physical body for us to be able to sit in meditation without having pains in our bodies, without having blocked energy, having a free energy flow, so that the mind can transcend. You see? So it's getting the body out of the way. It's not giving so much importance to the body, it's taking care of it so that it stops being an obstacle. The fourth stage of Raja Yoga is called pranayama. What we said that the word yama means control, prana means bioenergy. So the pranayama, the fourth stage, is the control of bioenergy. Okay? Now, this is usually done by learning to control the breath while controlling the mind simultaneously, learning to do specific breathing patterns, as you learned last week, to breathe alternately through your nostrils. You learn to control the breath by counting so that we were doing the square breathing, so that we inhale, held, exhaled, and held the air out for the same length of time. And thirdly, by focusing on the energy centers as we inhale into the solar plexus, hold in the heart center, let it flow up through the neck on the exhalation, and focus on the forehead while the lungs are empty. And this is a form of pranayama. This is called pranayama. This is the fourth step of Raja Yoga. We are learning to control the bioenergy by controlling our breath and controlling where our mind is at the same time, because our mind is moving from one energy center to the other, and it's also counting at the same time. Okay? The fifth stage is called pratyahara. Pratyahara, which does not actually mean the control of the senses, but withdrawal from the senses. What does this mean? That is, you've experienced that when you are concentrated on something, then that allows you not to be aware of other sense inputs. So if you're concentrated on TV, you may not hear a car going by. If you're concentrating on a discussion, you may not hear someone who talks to you, asks you a question. Okay? So this is the opposite. That is, by learning to withdraw the mind from the senses, we are able to concentrate more clearly, more easily. So what we're doing here is we're trying to remove the obstacles towards concentration, which are the fact that any kind of guilt by not living according to the yamas, that is, by telling lies, by stealing, by being violent, will prevent the mind from transcending. Because the moment we start coming in contact with our higher self, we will begin to feel these things. We don't feel them as long as we are engaged in the personality, because we are away from the conscience. We have hidden the conscience. The conscience is like a tunnel that we have to go through in order to touch the higher self. So anything that we do which is against our conscience will come right up as we meditate, you see. So then putting the body, so the body is not bothering us. Then putting the energy in the harmony, so that the energy is not creating thoughts, or the energy is not too low. Because if the energy is low, we go into a dreamlike state. If the energy is too high and it's nervous, we have too many thoughts. So we want to create a harmonious energy flow. And we want to learn to allow the sense inputs, the fifth stage, let the sense inputs come and go. You see, when you hear something, what do? The first thing we do is try to determine what it is. We need to do this in order to feel safe. I have to know, this is a baby crying or a cat, or what is it? Is this thunder or bombs? Okay? Because if it's thunder, okay, but if it's bombs, I'm not feeling secure about it, okay? So we always want to identify what we hear. And then, once we identify it, we begin to think about it. And so every sense input becomes a stimulus for the thought process. So we want to learn to let the sounds just go through. Even the heat and sensations of the skin to go through. Ultimately, one could get to the stage of allowing an ant to walk on his skin, or a mosquito to bite him, without him being aware of that, or being aware of it but not being bothered by it. So the mind is disengaged from the senses. Okay, this is the fifth stage. And that brings us to, this is, until now, the first 5 stages is called outer yoga. Yoga, which has to do with everything outside of the mind. The senses are outside of the mind. The energy, the body, the behavior are outside of the mind. The last 3 stages are called inner yoga, and they have to do with the mind itself. And they are concentration, meditation, and ecstasy. We will discuss these at a further date. They have to do with, there are various forms of, various degrees or levels of concentration. Okay? So this will be discussed at another time. So this gives you a basic idea of this path of yoga, this path of meditation, of Raja Yoga. That it's not simply that I sit and meditate. It's a way of life. It's a way of behaving. It's a way of having discipline. It's a way of controlling the body, controlling the breath, so that eventually we can control the mind with the ultimate goal of transcending the mind and experiencing our real, our true spiritual being. Because the whole idea is that we are souls in the process of evolution, and that we are much more than this body and personality, and that we are experiencing a very small part of our being, and that we can experience our true self only if we transcend the mind. As long as we are in the mind, we will be experiencing the personality. And we can obtain a certain amount of happiness by analysis and by philosophy within the mind, but total freedom and total happiness can be obtained only when we experience our separateness from the body and mind. So let's look now at the first three yamas. The first is non-violence. Now we are asked to be non-violent in thought, words, and in deeds. Okay? So that means obviously not hitting anybody, not harming anybody physically, but we can do much more damage by our words, by criticizing, by gossiping. Gossiping is a form of violence. Criticizing is a form of violence. Demeaning someone, calling someone names is a form of violence. And of course, thinking negatively about someone, having angry, hurtful thoughts towards someone is another form of violence. Now, I must distinguish that no one can employ the yamas and the niyamas perfectly if he's not enlightened. Okay, so this is a goal. This is a guideline. This should not be creating guilt. This is not another way of creating guilt. You see, I have it as a frame of reference. I want to be non-violent. I want not to criticize. I want not to gossip. But of course I'm going to do it, because I am in my personality. And of course the personality fears. And whenever the personality fears, it resorts to this kind of thinking and speaking. So when I see that I am functioning in this way, do not feel guilty. But just remind yourselves that you don't want to function in this way, and analyze the beliefs which cause you to do so. So, am I criticizing? What do I believe which is causing me to criticize or to gossip or to hurt this person's feelings or to have these negative thoughts? Usually behind these kinds of behavior I will find fear. So what I usually ask myself is, what am I fearing? What do I fear about this person which is making me think aggressively, to think negatively about this person? What do I fear about this person which is causing me to behave negatively or to speak negatively to this person? So rather than feeling guilt, just let go of guilt, but analyze and try to discover the cause of this thinking, speaking, or behaving. Now, why is this so important? Because what we are doing in these cases is that we are doing to another being what we would not like that being to do to us. This is the only law, actually, in the universe. And so, what happens is that I am functioning outside of my conscience, which means that I will either feel very bad about myself, or I will cover my conscience. In both cases, I can't have contact with a peaceful mind. Because if I'm feeling badly, I can't stop my mind. And if I have covered my conscience, I can't have access to my higher self, because my conscience is an integral part of my higher self. So it's not a matter of good or bad, evil or good. It's very practical. I can't have access to higher parts of my being as long as I'm thinking and functioning in this way. The second reason is that this creates a vicious circle. Because when others experience this negative energy from us, they begin to think and to speak and to act towards us in the same way. And that becomes a stimulus which increases our negative feelings. And then we have this vicious circle of negativity between us and the people around us, which is definitely an obstacle towards our happiness in daily life, and obviously an obstacle towards transcending the personality. We just really get rooted into the personality and protecting ourselves from what we think is danger from this other person. Thirdly, all of these negative thoughts are based on the illusion that the other person is separate from me, whereas the realization of spiritual truth is that we are all one spirit and one energy. So that this kind of functioning, this functioning from the personality in which we are criticizing or hurting others in any way, physically or mentally or verbally, is based on the idea that the other is separate from me. It's something which comes from alienation. And the height of alienation we can see in many American cities in which this one person who doesn't even know these people will just open up with a machine gun and just shoot 20 or 30 people. This is the result of alienation, of feeling that I am not with anybody. There is no one who is with me, and everyone is against me, you see. And so I can't behave in this way if I'm not feeling alienation. And alienation, or separateness, is the basic illusion of our reality. And meditation, or samadhi, the highest stage of meditation, is the realization that this is false, that I am not separate. That is, the height of meditation is the experience of oneness with everyone and with everything. So this very act of being violent in thoughts, words, or deeds is based on the illusion and increases the illusion of my separateness. Now, for each of these yamas, I need to speak about Patanjali for a minute. Patanjali is the author of the book which is called the Yoga Sutras, or the Aphorisms of Patanjali, which is about 212 phrases only. It fits in about 4 or 5 pages. But the commentaries on these 212 sentences can fill 400 pages. There are literally hundreds of commentaries on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. It's the basic book for Raja Yoga, or for meditators. Okay, it was written about 300 to 500 years before Christ. Okay, and all this what we're learning now in this course on meditation is basically from Patanjali. And for each yama, that is, for each ethical guideline, he states what will happen if a person perfects that. Okay? And what he says is that if a person perfects non-violence, then he emits such a powerful vibration of peace that it's impossible for violence to take place in his aura, in his presence. That he becomes, without even speaking, his presence creates a state of peace. Because we have many examples of saints living in nature who lived in harmony with wolves, with lions, with tigers, with wild animals. And it's easy to see that if a person has these very peaceful vibrations, that even wild and aggressive animals are transformed by that, at least in their presence. Now, one may say, well, what about peaceful beings like Christ or Gandhi or Martin Luther King, who are all assassinated? Obviously violence could take place in their presence. But we have to see this in a different way. These were specific situations in which it was useful for them to be assassinated. I mean, their assassination served the purpose of man's evolution. If Christ wasn't crucified, there would be no Christianity. There wouldn't be this symbol, this lesson, and all of his words would have made no importance to anybody. So he needed to be crucified. I think the same with Gandhi and Martin Luther King. I think their power, or even Socrates, their power became greater. Their influence on society became greater. And they were also perhaps tested in that moment as to how connected they were. But in general, the idea here is that everything functions by sympathetic vibration, so that the more peaceful I am, the more I vibrate in harmony with other people's peace. And the more agitated I am, the more I stimulate other people's nervosity or agitation. So it's a matter of sympathetic vibration. So developing this peacefulness, which is a prerequisite for meditation, but also a result of meditation, is not only useful for meditation, but useful for our daily lives. The second yama is honesty. Now, I'd like to talk about some versions of honesty, or some versions of not being honest. Now, the first version is telling a gross lie, just, telling something which is just not true. Okay? That's one possible way of not being honest. Another possibility is what we call white lies in English, kata synthiki psama in Greek, where some woman might lie about her age, or someone might lie to the tax bureau, or people that supposedly white lies which are harmless. But if we analyze why we tell white lies, we'll discover that there is fear. Why can't I tell my age? Or why someone might, for example, cover up their beliefs so that they don't come in conflict with someone, Well, they may cover up that they're coming to Harmonika Izui. A lot of people in the first 2 or 3 years try to hide that from the people around them. It's not a heavy lie, it's not a bad lie, but it's a white lie. I'm afraid what will happen if the others know that I'm coming to this center. They may think I'm a heretic. They may think that it's another religion, or there's worshipping some other deities or something. Another kind of lying is not being true to who we are. That is, that depending on our company, depending on who we are with, we are someone else. So this is a form of lying in the sense that I am not being true to my real self. I'm not expressing who I really am to the people around me. And this is also based on fear. And this also keeps us from being able to experience our inner self. Because there's not an alignment. Because in order for us to experience our inner self, there has to be an alignment between what we believe, what we think, what we say, and what we do. These also have to be in alignment. If what I think and what I believe and my values are different from what I say and different from what I do, then there's no alignment in these channels, and I can't get in contact with my inner self. Another lying is a lying to ourselves, rationalizing ourselves. Saying, well, I don't want to stop smoking, or I could stop smoking anytime I like, or I don't have time to help this person, when the reality is that I prefer not to give the time to help this person. Or that I can't do this, I can't do that, which is just rationalizing ourselves, and not just saying the truth to ourselves that, I'm addicted to this, or that I have other preferences in my life, and so I'm not giving importance to this, you see. So it's lying to ourselves. And another form of lying, which is actually very common in the Mediterranean countries, is saying we will do something, or saying we will be somewhere at a particular time, and then not doing it or not being there. So if I say I'm going to be there at 12, and then I get there at 12:15, it's a lie. It wasn't a lie when I said it, but it became a lie when my actions did not fulfill my words. You see? So this inconsistency between our promises, our responsibilities, the word that we have given that I'm going to do something and then not doing it, or doing it not the way that I had agreed to do it, it also becomes a lie. In the ancient Indian scriptures, in the Mahabharata, which is a larger book in which the Bhagavad Gita exists, it's interesting how literally they took the words. For example, Arjuna, who is the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, was returning home with his 4 brothers, with his prized wife, who he won in the same way that Odysseus won his wife, Penelope, by shooting an arrow through a small hole. Okay? And as he was coming, his mother was bent over, and she was in the house. She says, "Mother, come and see what I have brought you." And without even turning around, she just said, "Whatever it is, share it between you." Because she said this, the 5 brothers had to share this wife, because her word had to become reality. In another case, in the Ramayana, Rama's father had 3 wives, okay, and he promised one of his wives. She saved him in a battle, and he said to her, "Well, I owe you anything that you want," one day. Okay, so after some years, he said, "Well, tell me, what is it that you want?" And she says, "I want my son to be king." He was a king, you see. And Rama's son wanted Rama to be king. He couldn't imagine anyone else being king because he was a very spiritual person. He was considered divine. But he could not go back on his word. He couldn't say, "No, I'm not going to do this." And so he just died, so that he wouldn't have to go back on his word. I mean, so literally, people took their word in those days. I gave my word, finished. There's no discussing it. It means that I lose my fortune. It means that I lose my wife. It means I lose my children. It means that I lose my life. Nothing is more important than that, you see. And so, what Patanjali says is that once someone perfects honesty, the power which he obtains is called sankalpa, the power of manifestation. That is, whatever he says or thinks becomes a reality. This could even become the power of materialization, so that if he thinks of an apple, he could actually materialize an apple. If he thinks of someone being healed, that person will be healed. That is the power of one's thoughts affecting material reality. It's called sankalpa. And this is the power which Patanjali claims will be obtained if someone perfects truth. That is, always tells the truth, is always himself, doesn't lie to himself, and is always consistent in whatever he promises and whatever he says he will do. Now, what are the reasons that we tell lies? First of all, it's a feeling of separateness and a feeling of being vulnerable, and we try to protect ourselves by lying. Okay? We're trying to protect our self-worth, and so we lie about ourselves. We try to hide our weaknesses, our mistakes, our fears, or we try to exaggerate about who we are and try to blow ourselves up in other people's eyes by bragging. So it's basically a lack of self-acceptance, a lack of self-confidence, and a fear basically of losing something. It could be a fear, we might tell lies to the tax bureau in order to fear of losing money, you see. So all lies, or we fear losing someone's love, or losing someone's acceptance, or someone's respect. Okay, so behind that there is fear. Okay? So we can understand why, if I am functioning out of fear, it's impossible to transcend the mind, because fear is a function of the mind. I'm not going to be able to succeed in my meditation because there is so much fear in the mind, which is causing me not to be truthful. We might also tell lies in order to avoid conflict. That is, either because we're afraid of being hurt in conflict, or we just can't stand conflict anymore, or we might also avoid telling the truth in order not to hurt the other person. Now one might say, well, this is okay. And it may be okay in some situations. But what I have realized in my life is that usually, perhaps not always, but usually when I was afraid of telling the truth to someone because they may get hurt, the reality was that I was afraid that I would lose their love if they got hurt. And if I told them the truth and they were hurt, that they would be upset and then I would lose their love. So we really have to search more deeply and to see really the reason I'm not telling this truth is to protect the other or to protect myself. We have to be clear about that. Of course, there's always the possibility of not speaking at all, which is not necessarily a lie. If no one asks us, that's a possibility. Yeah. The third yama is non-theft, of not taking something which belongs to us. Now, there are two aspects of non-theft. What I'm going to present to you, you may not accept. Okay, in this seminar, you are free to accept anything and not accept anything. Okay, I'm just presenting you some thoughts which have come to me throughout these years as I'm trying to see reality. Okay, I believe that that as spirits, we have been given a certain amount of energy on this earth. And that energy can be in the form of human energy, it can be in the form of money, it can be in the form of possessions. And that we are being tested in the way we use this energy. That is my time, my mind, my energy, my talents, my money, my possessions. Okay, this is all my wealth. Okay, so non-theft consists of two things: how I obtain my wealth and what I do with it. Okay, so how I obtain it. There are two. We use the word dharmic. Dharmic means proper ways, righteous ways. Okay, two dharmic or righteous ways of obtaining money. The first is by inheritance. Okay, so whatever I inherit is okay. But that doesn't mean, there could be an inheritance and someone could steal it from me. Okay, I could seek to get it in every legal way, but if it doesn't come to me, then it means it wasn't to come to me. Okay, but I can seek to have it. Okay, so one thing is by inheritance. The second is by work. Okay, now by whatever work I do in this life. Now the prerequisite for the work is that is called dharmic or righteous when I would be very happy to be on the other side of this transaction. We're not even talking about stealing outright. I don't think any of you are burglars, are you? You've given it up, I suppose. So we're not even talking about outright going into a store or a home and stealing. That's out of the question, okay? We're talking about the subtleties of stealing, okay? So if I'm selling oranges, and at the bottom of the crate I have rotten oranges, okay? Or if I'm building a house, and I would not like to live in that house because I'm putting more sand and less cement, so the next earthquake is going to fall down. Or if I'm a lawyer and I would not like to pay that amount of money that I'm taking for being represented. Or if I'm a doctor and I would not like to pay that amount of money for the work that I'm giving. Or if I'm an employer who would not like to be an employee who is being paid that much for the work that he's doing. Or if I'm an employee who would not like to be the employer who is paying me because I'm drinking coffee and smoking all day long, then I would not like to be on the other side of this transaction. You see, so this money is not righteous because I am gaining it in a way in which I am doing to someone what I would not like them to do to me. Or perhaps I'm not doing to someone what I would not like them to do to me. So we have to look very clearly at all of our transactions through which we obtain money. would I be very happy to be on the other side of this transaction? To buy this for this amount, to pay this much for this service. Or if I'm giving a service, this is a good service that I'm giving? Am I giving my heart to it, you see? So this is one aspect, a very important aspect. So each person needs to ask himself this question in the way that he is earning his money in life. I mean, I've seen cases of doctors taking envelopes from people that have no money. They had to borrow money to give these envelopes. And these doctors have yachts and 2 and 3 houses. And it cannot be dharmic money. Okay. But this could be anywhere, any situation, any profession. But this is an obvious example of non-dharmic money, okay? Not righteous money. It's a form of stealing. Now, the second thing is what we do with our money. Because you see, the problem of the earth is not that there is not enough resources. The problem of the earth is that the resources are not distributed properly. There's plenty of resources for everyone on the earth to have health, to have a very nice house, to have everything that they need, a good education, electricity, water, something which I think about 70% of the earth does not have. About 70% does not have. And this is because the energy, the economic energy, is being accumulated in some places and not flowing freely. It's like as if it's an organism, as if the blood in my body is all going into my right leg and there's nothing in my left leg. Both legs are going to suffer. The right leg is going to suffer from too much, and the left leg is going to suffer from too little. And both are going to be diseased. So by having too much, I'm going to be diseased in one way, and having too little, I'm going to be diseased in another way. So there is a dharmic use of money. And what is that? Or of resources in general. I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about land, houses, cars, everything. Time, energy, mind. These are all resources. Okay? One valid use of all of our resources is survival. You can't do much if you don't survive. Okay? So my survival and the survival of all beings for whom I am responsible. Family, extended family. Okay? Second is evolution. Anything which enhances my evolutionary process, because the soul is here for one reason, to evolve, to grow. Okay? So in evolution there could be also education, traveling, maybe there's all kinds of traveling, but pilgrimages and traveling in order to enhance one's spirituality. But just traveling to drink and eat would not be included. A certain amount of clothing is necessary, but having 40 pieces of clothing which I never touch doesn't help humanity. It's better for that to move. Spending tremendous amounts of money for a painting which is going to be on my wall, $1 million for a painting which I read sometimes, when that money could be used for education, for health, for a better transportation system. So it's a matter of reevaluating our value system, because our value system is what we are. It's how can I transcend a mind which is so focused on itself and so alienated from the whole? I mean, how can I have so much when others have so little? I'm obviously not feeling unity. How can I be so indifferent to what's happening around me and see people starving? I mean, every day 40,000 children die because they don't have nourishment. That's every day. Today 40,000, tomorrow 40,000, Friday 40,000, Saturday 40,000. Not because there's not enough energy or resource on the earth, because it's accumulated. Okay? So it's difficult for a person who really wants to grow spiritually or move in higher levels of meditation to ignore this fact. And he has to see, what are my resources and how can I use my resources for the real purpose of life, which is survival and spiritual growth. Now, you could add to that creativity, all kinds of things could be there. But accumulating clothing, or accumulating furniture, or accumulating houses, accumulating things which are not being used is like stagnant energy. Better to sell them, use that money to go do some good for the planet, okay? I'm not saying this to try to create any form of guilt. We have every right to enjoy a nice life, have a car, have our house, have warmth, have running water. There's no need to give up all of these things. But we have to find a balance between that and the realization that just a few kilometers away, there are people living in tents. And there are people living on the street. And that the educational system is not very good and it can be improved. And there are so many things that we could do with our time, because I'm not talking just about money. I'm talking about time, I'm talking about our minds, our energy. We could give them to humanity. Okay? And the process of spiritual growth has this in it. I mean, when one grows spiritually, one becomes more interested in his fellow being. It's difficult anymore to ignore that. I mean, it gradually becomes impossible just to do things for pleasure. I mean, one wants to seek a better society, because we complain about society, we complain about theft, we complain about violence, but theft and violence will always be there as long as there is inequality. As long as there is inequality, there will be theft and there will be violence and there will be strikes and there will be hatred. It's very natural. I mean, if we were in that position, we would be feeling all of those things. You see? So if we want to heal ourselves and society, we need to look at this issue at some point. At your own rate. And in your own way. Why do we hoard? Why do we accumulate? Well, the first reason is insecurity. Okay? We're afraid of what might happen in the future, and so we don't know how many million, we're talking about drachmas now, not dollars, how many million drachmas I need in order to be safe, because I'm not going to take it with me. Of course, some people may think they're going to take it with them. There's an interesting sideline, it's rather humorous. There is now a company in America where you can leave your money just before you die, and leave, if you believe in reincarnation, and leave some answers to some questions where if you can remember them when you're reborn, you can get your money. Really? It's true. I mean, many people believe in reincarnation now. Why shouldn't they take it with them? I'm not telling you, it's not a joke, huh? So, if you want to take it with you, there is this possibility, okay? So you can put it in this account, and after 50 years, when you're reincarnated, you know, you can, if you remember that it's there, you can go and tell them the answers, you know, and you get your money and keep going on. But otherwise, you're not going to take it with you. So how many million do I need to get to the end of the road? Okay. Yeah, some people are satisfied with a few. Others are not satisfied with unlimited amounts. We need to think. So one is insecurity. Another need, another reason is greed. You know, the pleasure of having. It's also power. It's also a form of, you can have power over people. You can buy friends. You can buy things. You know, it's a form of power that you can have on the earth plane. And also, I suppose many people gain affirmation and self-worth by having a lot, or having a nice place, or an impressive place, or impressive things, or an impressive amount of money. These are needs, these are ego needs, but obviously they can be an obstacle to the growth process, okay? And they're obviously an obstacle to social harmony, both being violent and telling lies and accumulating or selling things which are not good, or cheating people in our transactions. All of these are not only spiritual problems, but they're practical problems, which are creating a society in which it's very difficult to be happy, which is very difficult for harmony to be created. And it's just whatever is spiritual is also practical. That's what I've seen in my life. Whatever functions spiritually also functions practically. As we move towards a more spiritual life, practical life becomes much nicer. Okay, so these are the three yamas that I would like you to think about this week. Non-violence, it's not thinking or speaking or acting in violent ways. Being truthful, and thinking about our resources and how we're gaining them and what we're doing with them. Just think about it, and we can discuss it next week if you want. So let's do our meditation now, and then any questions that you have we'll do after the meditation, okay? To take a sitting position. You sit with your spine straight, the eyes closed. Begin to breathe slowly and deeply. As you breathe, allow your body to straighten and to relax. Now we're going to begin the alternate breathing in a relaxed way. Bring your right arm, close your right nostril with your right thumb, exhale through the left nostril, and inhale through the left nostril, close the left nostril with your last fingers, with the index finger towards above, exhale through the right, inhale through the right. Now continue alternating the nostrils as you count your breath, so that the inhalation, the retention, the exhalation, and the abstention are of equal length. Continue alternating the nostrils as you count the breathing. Inhaling into the solar plexus, holding in the heart center, exhaling through the neck upward, abstaining in the center of the forehead. Inhaling into the solar plexus, holding in the heart center, exhaling through the neck, abstaining in the center of the forehead. Now, you may let go of the breathing, allow it to continue freely. Check your body, allow it to be straight. Allow your legs to be in a comfortable position. Allow your abdominal muscles to relax. Allow the solar plexus to be relaxed. Feel your shoulders Allow them to come back and downward in a relaxed way. Allow your neck to be straight and relaxed. Allow the muscles of your jaw to relax. Allowing the tongue also to be relaxed. Allow the cheeks, feel the cheeks, allow them to relax. And the eyes, allow the eyes to relax. And focus on the center of your forehead, allowing it to relax. And communicate with the divine in your own way, expressing whatever is important to you. Now, focus on the light in your forehead. You may see it, or you may feel it, or imagine it. And allow the vibration of light, the sensation of light, to fill all of the head, allow it to permeate into the brain, relaxing all the cells of the brain. Allow the light to flow into your face, relaxing more deeply all the muscles of the face. Allow the light to flow into your neck area, to relax it. into the shoulders, into the arms, and focus on the center of your chest, sensing the light source there, like the flame of a candle or the sun shining in the center of your chest. Allowing the chest to fill with light. Allow the light to flow into the solar plexus, relaxing. And into the abdominal area. And even into the legs. So that the whole body is permeated by the sensation of light. And the light expands, surrounding the body. And the light outside the body unites with the light within. And we experience ourselves as light, as energy, or as consciousness, free from thoughts. Every time you find that you have moved into thoughts, return patiently and lovingly to the feeling of energy, light, without thoughts. can gradually relax your position and your concentration.
Very positive results in their life. Are they so different than we are? Or, I mean,
No, I wouldn't.
Perfect?
No, I wouldn't say that. And I would say that many meditators may be less pleasant as personalities than many people that are not meditating. It doesn't mean if someone is meditating, or even if one is attending a seminar, or one thing is to be trying to do something, and another thing is to be there. There may be some people that are very ethical, very pleasant, very rational and kind, and are not involved in any of these activities. But it is true that each person, you can't compare people, but you can compare one person to himself as time goes on. You understand what I mean? So you can't compare meditation and non-meditation. You can compare people to how they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. It doesn't mean, of course, that they won't go through stages in which they might become more negative as things come to the surface. But the long run process will be positive. Any other questions about the meditation? Hey, Amina?
Why do we start with the solar plexus much from down?
Well, we don't want to activate those centers so much. So we activate mostly the solar plexus where the energy is more gathered for most of us. Most of us are concerned with affirmation in our lives at this time. It's not beneficial in the beginning. Actually, the first chakra that one should try to open is the heart center, and then the forehead center, and then work with the other centers. Yes. Otherwise, there's a danger of activating parts of yourself which will cause you to lose balance. If you don't have love and you don't have wisdom, which is the heart center and the forehead center, and you open up these centers, then they could cause you to lose your way.
So you mean by when you start working on the other centers?
In our morning keys, we never focus on the lower centers. Now, there are some Chinese forms of meditation. First of all, most forms of meditation, you don't focus on the chakras at all. Okay? When you feel a mantra, you don't focus on the chakras. If you're focusing on Christ, you don't focus. So it's 80%, or I'd say 90% of all meditations have nothing to do with the chakras. Okay? Those that do, most of them don't work on opening the lower chakras. You have to have a very pure state in order to begin to work with those chakras. You have to have been a vegetarian for 3 or 4 years, not taking any alcohol, cigarettes, because, as I explained in the last session, if that energy awakes and you are not pure, it raises havoc in your life.
But don't you think that all, even those chakras, they have a higher level that you can see, doesn't always mean that you have to go through the
Well,
realistic aspect of it?
yeah. I'm telling you my experience and the experience of thousands of other teachers, that one is not encouraged to focus on these centers because usually disturbance is created. I've experienced it myself, and it's a reality of so many beings. Yeah.
When you say open up, what do you mean exactly? Open up is something.
Were you at the last class?
I missed it.
You'll have to listen to this cassette then. If this energy is released, then it can cause one to have alternating emotional and energy situations. Tremendous sexual desire and aversion to sex, tremendous desire for food and inability to eat, and the need to sleep for days and inability to sleep at all for months.
No, didn't mean that.
This is what happens if the energy wakes and you're not ready.
When you mean by opening up the centers of the
It means
heart,
you
what do you mean by opening them up?
you energize them, and there's a latent potential there for love and for wisdom. And so by focusing on them and energizing them, or freeing them through analysis or prayer or work or various ways, you increase their functioning, which means you increase the amount of love and you increase the amount of wisdom. So if you're focusing on the lower centers, you're, in a sense, increasing the need for pleasure, increasing the need for security, you see. And if you activate this center, you're increasing the need for power, for affirmation. This is why we avoid working with those centers. There are some systems. I do now focus on those centers, but I would not suggest to anyone in the beginning or even for the first 6 or 7 years to focus on those centers.
Practically, when you say that we breathe out through our throat, where exactly do you mean?
No, I don't mean by out. I mean upward through the neck. So the energy is coming like this, coming here.
So there's not exactly...
It's not going out, it's going up through until it arrives at the forehead. And eventually you'll be able to actually feel, and it will be real because you will feel that the energy has moved here, the energy is now here, and you'll see that there are various reactions from that. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah?
There's something I want to ask. Is there a chance that we will not want to go back to our body after meditating? When meditating?
For a short period of time, someone may feel that. It would be natural for some people. If you're feeling a very blissful state, a state of peace, then it would be natural. But that will wear off and one will return. Yes. No one has ever died meditating. It would be very nice. But you focus on the candle now or on... you have to change that now. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes?
Concerning the previous
Yes.
part of that talk, when you say you're not to be critical, do you mean in all forms? We're not meant to be critical of anything we see, or
No.
there are other people's actions, even concerning political actions? And
There's a difference between discernment and criticism. Okay? So we need to have the ability to discern that this behavior is not in alignment with truth. It's not in alignment with love. It's not in alignment with equality. This person is functioning in a way which is detrimental to himself, to us, to society. We don't want to lose that awareness. It's one thing to be aware of that, and it's another thing to close our heart towards that person, to feel negatively towards that person, to speak about that person to other people. So if the best thing to do would be to confront that person, what we're thinking, in a loving way, telling him, I'm fearful of what might happen from the way you're functioning. I can't agree with you. You might even say, I get angry. It's okay to say I'm angry. What's not okay is to be disrespectful. Yeah.
Can I just follow up on that? Because a lot of situations occur that don't really develop into anger but are irritation, I would say. So, someone at the next table from you is talking really loudly into a cell phone and being not very considerate, or driving in the streets, people are crazy. So how do you deal with it? And my initial reaction is to say, does it matter the person that cuts off in front of me, or the person who's talking loud, or people who are inconsiderate? How do you deal with that? It seems to me a pretty natural reaction to someone else who's being selfish or inconsiderate.
It's a natural reaction, and we may not be able to overcome the momentary reaction, but as we feel more secure, and as our basis of security is increased, then we will be less bothered by it, and it may now take us, some say 15 minutes to come back to our center, and as we go on in this process, it may take us 5 minutes, and then 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and then it may be a matter of seconds that you see the irritation coming, you realize it serves no purpose because the other guy can't even hear you. Not even about it. So it's only doing harm to you, actually. I mean, it's creating hormones and stress in your body. And so it really serves no purpose. And you say, well, okay. And also bringing various spiritual truths to our mind, that, that we are in no danger, that life gives us what we want, that this person doesn't know better. He's in a state of ignorance. This is the way he functions, this is the way he learns, understanding. It happens. It happens. You do become more peaceful about these things. But it doesn't mean that you stop fighting for what you believe is right. It's okay. You can't do much about one person driving, but if you think there's something that is wrong in the educational system or in the health system or in anything, I mean, we have every right to form groups and fight for a better life, but in a non-violent way, just as Gandhi was able to remove the British from India without ever becoming violent. He succeeded. Stubborn, stubborn and powerful. So it doesn't mean not being assertive. It means not being violent. But we can definitely be assertive. Anything else? Yes.
About lying.
Yes.
There is no no situation where a lie could be good.
Beneficial.
Beneficial, yes.
Well, like example?
I was thinking of this woman who lost her hair through chemotherapy, had a wig on, and she asked me if I could tell whether she had a wig on, and I told her no, that it was pretty natural. All I could tell. She had a wig on. I mean, that made her happy.
Right. Well, I don't think.
It's difficult for me to say otherwise.
I don't think you're going to be prevented from enlightenment for that, but. But it would be wonderful to be in this state, to just have the time to sit with this person and say, it does show, but this is not really important, and your self-worth has nothing to do with how you appear. And it would be great if we could do that. Of course, that person may not be ready for this, and we might say, yes, it looks fine, but at some time, we might find a chance to speak with this person about this, why don't you just go without hair? I've seen a lot of women who have done that and just did it. And I think you can feel good about yourself when you can just be yourself without hair. And it's a form of self-acceptance. So it's not so serious, okay? There's a lot of worse things that we're doing in life.
No,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
discriminate, that's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's okay. Anything else? Okay, have a nice week. Try to meditate daily, okay? We're staying with this light thing for a few more weeks, and then we're going to move on to something else, okay? Remember that the 17th of November we won't have class, okay?